Today I'm talking to Taylan Ali, who comes from Turkey and lives in Holland. And today we are going to talk about lessons learned from moving countries. So thank you very much for choosing this topic, Tylan, and suggesting that we talk about that today. And welcome to the podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And I think that, like what is left after life's moves, changes, experiences, what is left behind is just lessons learned, probably.
Absolutely. And to give our listeners and viewers some context, I just want to understand where you were born and what led to you being in Amsterdam, Holland.
I was born in the eastern part of Turkey. It's close to Armenian-Iranian border, mountainous area, and it's it is inhabited by Kurds, Alevis, all kinds of different mix of people. And there was a military coup when I was a little child, and we had to move to Istanbul because it was too much to handle for my family, and we couldn't have got a proper education, me and my brother. So we moved to Istanbul, and there I studied, I grew up, and I became an architect. Afterwards, after graduation, I actually worked at a very interesting construction site. I'm now in Istanbul, and friends from Amsterdam were here. I took them to Hagia Sophia, the biggest medieval structure ever. It was a museum, it was a church, it was a museum, and now it's a mosque, but you can visit it. I mean, I worked there for the restoration of this magnificent building before I moved to Amsterdam, because I first moved to Rotterdam because I studied again. I just wanted to get to know the Dutch mentality of design, because they are really, the landscape is a Dutch word. And they made the country. So learning about urban planning, landscape, I really opened up to the existence of the country. And then I worked there for many years as an architect. I had my own office, and it was going well. And then from my roots, I got this healing abilities. It's in the family. It Around the age of 40, it just comes and hits you. So it has done that. And around the age of 41, I stopped as an architect. I closed my office and kind of moved to Istanbul back. My father passed away.
And
Yeah, he passed away 7 years ago, and I really thought, it's time to be with family. Just go and see like when somebody leaves of so much of importance in our lives, it's good to come together, because then that gap opened up by his departure could be could be filled in. So
mm,
we basically came together as a family of three now. And we and it's his next week, it's his passing away. It's the anniversary, seventh anniversary of his passing away. And like it's so good to just come as a family together to feel the connection. And so I did that basically. Mm, and
and when you went back to Istanbul, prompted by your father dying, were you visiting or were you moving at that point? Were you when you went back to Istanbul?
I was here for 3 4 months during the winter. I had here also clients to give healing sessions. And so it's so interesting to reintegrate to oneself, because I had been living so many years in the Netherlands. It was also reintegration to who I
Mm.
am. Uh, you can adopt, you can highly integrate to the society and the ways of the people. That's for me, it's a sign of respect as well
When you moved to
to
a
the
country,
societies that I. exactly, learning the language and respecting the rules, the, the visible rules and the invisible rules. We are also entitled to get the invisible rules between people. They never teach you. you have to you have to learn them by trial error. It's like,
Absolutely.
so yeah, and it was so nice to come back because it's like Western Europe has its own cultural environment, and Istanbul is just between Asia and Europe, and it's just totally different. It's so Western and it's so Eastern. It's just like the clash of everything, like the clash of the seculars, the clash of the religious, the clash of the modernization, the clash of any kind of, like economics. Everything's in a clash. So, like Netherlands is the top of capitalism. They really manage it better than any of the other countries in Europe, I think. Like capitalism, which works, kind of works as much as it can. And this is like a very how do you say, Istanbul is a place where people are still very dependent on each other in many ways to help each other, to solidarity and such. And in the Netherlands, it's much more individualistic. So that
Mm,
whole passage from individualism to, let's say, tribal and collective. It's more tribal and collective here in Turkey,
mm,
and that extreme individualism in the Netherlands.
mm,
So it has been a passage back and forth, trying to find my ways of connecting with people, my way of holding on to life between these two. The countries are extremely different, actually. Like you
mm,
cannot believe, like it's like whole medicine is even different. You go to a hospital in the Netherlands and they say, I had kidney stones, and they said, oh, they're not big enough for us to operate. So they send you home with all the pain so that the body will take care of the kidney stone. And it took me 4 months in the Netherlands so that I could get all the kidney stones. Here in Istanbul, I could have been operated the same day I went to the hospital.
mm.
All the tests, everything is done like tap, 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 and then you're operated. I was in Istanbul, then the pandemic happened, then I returned back to uh, Netherlands because it was quite a little heaven during the pandemic. Dutch has been very liberal and very open about all the regulations. I quite like that. I stayed there 8 months in a row, and after a while, because of personal reasons, I really wanted to go back, go out of Netherlands again. I couldn't come to Istanbul. Like, the spirits tell you stuff. Go to Berlin. Like, why Berlin? Let me go to Berlin then. Like it was an insight, like push. So I went there, and it was a heaven because, like, when you move a place, like the reality changes.
Mm,
It's a crazy place. It's quite unorthodox. Like everything is under discussion, like your gender, who you are, left, right. It's like a clash of politics, clash of gender, clash of everything. It's like, and I have never seen so many young people being on the streets protesting anything. I was at home, like protests. Come on, in the Netherlands we don't protest. 30,000 people marching, so many young people, anarchists, like anarchists, they exist. Hallelujah. So I was just really like in a kind of a boiling, pot with all these political things, all these things, ideas, like philosophy. There's no philosophy in the Netherlands. We are practical. We do our work. What is philosophy for? You know, you become practical. Do your thing. What is this philosophy for, right? Like, what do you use philosophy for? Like, but there's this philosophy of being, philosophy of gender, philosophy of politics, philosophy of any kind of existence, which was truly mind blowing for me. So I was really um, dazzled. I was really dazzled with the atmosphere in Berlin.
mm,
And it took me 3 years, and then things happened, and like that's the like the grass is always greener. that whole those colors faded away, began to see the whole German bureaucracy, the ways Germans are organized. Like there's a myth about like how wonderful Germans are. Well, it's bankrupt and it doesn't work in Berlin, and nothing works basically. And I said, whoa, at this age, I'm not gonna tolerate this. So I returned back to my safety and to Amsterdam. So it
Amsterdam.
was the
Mm.
yeah, Amsterdam. 7 years of 7 years cycle, 7 years Tibet after the death of my father. It started at the age of 41. It stopped at the age of 48. I really marked it like it's your birthday, you have to settle down again.
Mm.
So that's what I did.
Mm. And you're talking from Istanbul, just for clarity, because you are saying here Istanbul, but you live in you live in Amsterdam, but you're staying and visiting Istanbul, and good timing given it's the anniversary of your father's death next week, so you're in the perfect place. I have a question about you talking about the clash. So you talk about you mentioned the clash in Istanbul being an environment of the clash of everything, and given you'd spent many years by the time you returned, age 40, living in Amsterdam, did you have a personal clash, so to speak? Did you, I mean, you'd obviously been going to and from Istanbul and Amsterdam all, throughout your life. So, but I'm curious, given you relate to Istanbul as this clash environment, did you have a clash when you went back to live there? Was that a challenge in certain ways?
It was mostly the clash was one of the biggest clashes is that of course there's this whole idea about individualism and you are all capable on your own and you do not really actually need the like other people. You can always help each other, but you're not going to depend on them. So that was the thing, that there was a lot of interference in my private life. And I thought it's okay. But the main clash was political because like yesterday there was a football match. 2 days ago, I was on the streets. I'm really at the center of everything. And like people are just like chanting, we are the soldiers of Kemal Atatürk. Kemal Atatürk is the founder of the Turkish nation. And the current president doesn't like that much. So it's a football match, and the supporters are like secular, and the president has had a very conservative religious agenda. Even just like walking for your football match is just like becomes a political issue. And on Monday evening, I had to go to my dentist. So I got out. I just found out that I'm just really at the center. Everything was closed. I couldn't get into the metro because there was a protest of the women against violence, and like there were thousands of police. Every street was closed. I couldn't come back to my home almost because it wasn't possible. They had blocked all the roads, and even then, women made their way to the main square. They were like arrested, beaten, and arrested. It's just like women against violence are
Mm,
getting arrested, being beaten, and it's just like this is surrealistic for me. I really, if I was living in this country, it would have been normal. But this is not normal. This is not okay. We don't have that. We don't have that in the Netherlands, mostly. If it is
mm,
not about Palestinian now and Israel, or there were like clashes during the pandemic, like people who are against the regulations. There I saw clashes, but like it's not a common. It's not common. It's not a
mm,
daily practice.
mm,
You don't feel that all the time. You just like, but here it is like this a whole contradiction between sides. seculars against the fundamentalist or religious groups. It's like, and you have to be a side. You cannot, just like America, like you cannot be a side. You're either this or that. And it's like, it's mind-blowingly primitive to be divided into sides. It's
Yeah.
mind-blowingly so primitive and so tribal. Like my tribe against your tribe. Really? Don't we have anything in common? We have a cross-section of things.
Exactly.
And so I'm experienced this thing, and I'm so against the police state. But like this time I just went to the police to just say, how can I go back home? It's like who are you? Like, you're not against me. They sent you here. I'm not even a woman. I'm not even protesting anything. Tell me how I go home.
And did they?
And it's so good. Of course, they're human beings. But you forget that.
Yeah.
So that whole thing, that whole clash is happening, and this is not the case. I can go to the police in the Netherlands. It's just like, can I make a picture of you, me and me, you? It's like, or I need help. Can you help me? They're just civil servants.
Yeah.
They're not anyone to dictate anything over me.
No. And do you think that's one of your lessons? Because you're making a very interesting observation about the fact that, you're recognizing that in moving, one experience is normal in Turkey with secular fundamentalists. This behavior is not surprising. But if that behavior were in Amsterdam, it would be surprising. Do you think that one of the lessons you've noticed is how you're like a bridge between, you're a bridge of understanding. You see things from several sides because you're not attached to a particular side. And do you think moving countries facilitated that or had something to do with that?
Yeah, like I was brought up to be a secular person, like a defendant. So that is the whole idea. You're a soldier of the secular idea. And like, then you see these women in scarves, like they cover up their, we call it turban. And I was at the university studying architecture, and at some point they have told the university students either they wear a wig on top of their scarves, or they get rid of their scarves, or leave the university. Like, it was so severe. And I was just like, this is insane. Why do we do this? But like, on a secular level, you just learn to mandate stuff. And then that came back so harsh. They got their revenge. They got into power. They did the same thing. I have nothing to do with that scar. And I have nothing to do with women's hair. It's none of my business. I learned to respect the scarf in the Netherlands because it's what they do. After 2001, 9/11, everything gradually became more conservative in the whole Europe. And now with the refugees and everything, they talked about like scarf, forbidding scarf and everything. I learned that it is not a threat to me in the Netherlands. And now the whole Europe is becoming more and more nationalistic and more mandatory and everything. It's like, it's such a shift. It's so, actually, I can't even say sad because it's human condition. But it's again tribal, like my tribe against your tribe. I'm Muslim, you're Christian. I am Orthodox Christian, you're Catholic Christian, Protestants. Dutch are Calvinistic, most of them. What does that mean? What does that mean? It means nothing. We are holding on to that. We teach our kids these belief systems, thinking that, oh, we should. It's neutrality. It's like you don't have to be a side. A kid shouldn't be a side of anything. A kid can begin to question existence, and you can really feed that kid with spiritual stuff.
Mm,
We believe there's God, and the Christians believe there's also God. They differentiate. Like
mm,
teach also all these colors instead of like Muslim God versus Jewish God, and our God is better. And the Jews would think our God is better, and we are better than the Muslims.
yeah.
Like, come on, don't fool us with this.
Mm. And so when you moved to Holland, which it has a very different take and is much, pretty, from my experience of visiting, quite accepting, how did you how did you change, or what did you notice? What did you want to adopt? What were some of the things that kind of appealed to you that made you think, I'm enjoying this environment? Because you could have gone home to Istanbul at any time.
The one of the interesting things, it took me at least a year to understand I'm safe on the street. There will be no earthquakes happening. There will not be, because Istanbul is an earthquake zone and it was shaking. And like, I don't have to watch out at the traffic lights. No car will pass. They will stop. And it took me like 2 years to understand the police is not going to do anything bad to me.
Mm,
I'm safe. I'm not a threat. But then it was so strange. When 9/11 happened, you're dark and everything, you're with a bag in a train. What is there in the bag? I was so like this from time to time. I wanted to show I'm not a threat to you. There was so much um, disturbance in the society. And
mm,
then, but the main thing in the Netherlands is actually you can be on your own with your things. I could easily question their God because there's no one to disturb me. I can just spiritually ask that question, be busy with that, and get my own answers. Or like anything that you want to, anything you want to deal with, it is like it's yours. You can just ask that question, talk to people about it. They will tell you what they think. They're not going to really attack
mm,
and their point of view if you attack, but they would be open to talk about what they think.
mm,
It's not a polarized, politically charged country. It's quite practical. If you are useful to me, I'm going to make use of you. Like as an architect, I worked the last 9 years of my profession doing the interiors and some architecture. I had a building built of crematoria. I did the restoration of 45 crematoria in the Netherlands.
mm,
Me, coming from Turkey, went there as an architect, got this opportunity. I had no idea what cremation is. And these are like big facilities in the Netherlands. And I really got the opportunity to do that. And in Istanbul, it's just like, where are you from? I'm from the east of Turkey. Oh, your prospects are much less. You will be
mm,
discriminated for being not not belonging to the majorities in the country. I belong to all minorities in the Netherlands, in Turkey, and the Netherlands gave me the tool to be at peace with my identities. Like my identities are okay. There's nothing wrong with me, and I really thought in Turkey, oh, I have to be shut for this and for that. It was all like because if they figured it out, they would just discriminate you immediately
mm,
and like to your face. Which later on I experienced in Berlin.
mm.
The, the same violence. Like who you are doesn't speak to me. Okay, so the same arrogant behavior. And it was even worse than Turkey because like in Turkey I could deal with that.
Because it was
But in
familiar.
Germany, yeah, in Germany you don't know what to do with it. It's just like the person is just not talking to you, it's just shouting at you just because either you speak English or he doesn't like your color It's like shouting at you. And this is not all around Germany, by the way, but this is Berlin, which is like in the east part of Germany. Like I never experienced racism on my face. Like,
how did you process the disappointment? Because one of the things I think that happens for people is they do have an expectation of a country, and it's kind of natural, you know. And it sounds like you went into Berlin with some dreams, at least. Not, I don't know if they were, you would call them expectations, but aspirational intentions. And when you realized that they weren't going to materialize, or it wasn't the right environment for you, then how did you process that disappointment? Obviously you left, that was the ultimate outcome, but how did you process those feelings?
at some point, I couldn't. So I was just like, I had my place. I had a very good social life there. Berlin is amazing with social life. All these little groups, finding your tribes and groups works perfectly. So I just went out, came back to freshen up, and I had high levels of anxiety. Um, and I told myself, this time you go back, you will deal with your anxiety, you will live the same things, you will teach yourself not to be anxious when certain things are happening to you. Like when somebody is so rude to you, you will handle that. You will learn to handle rudeness, arrogance, non-cooperation, no agreement, no agreement. You're going to face that. You're going to go over your anxiety. And you will find why relationships do not work in the way that it could. Find why it is not like that. Just get your lesson. So I was really there to find the answers at some point so that I could train myself to be a tougher, like tough in the sense of like
Resilient.
you're not going to be resilient. Yeah, exactly. But like at some point, it's also like, why? Why? Why do we create these things? It's also like I'm not someone who wants to settle down somewhere and then like all things normal, no challenge, nothing, everything is under control. I don't like that. I like friction because with the friction we glance, we by the friction we just there's so much going on. But if that friction is taking your flesh, your skin, you really have to say, I have to stop this. This is really taking my skin away. And then look at the pain of it, not undermine pain. And why should I shout at anyone at a store, you are pigs? Why should I? If I was a refugee who wouldn't move, I would swallow them up. But I am a privileged Dutch citizen. I'm privileged. That country has values. Protect us all. Protect us all. Germany has it as well. The point is that I was in Berlin.
Yeah. It's interesting you talk of friction, because the analogy is very effective because, the friction can be creative, but if there's too much, then it's destructive. So, it's interesting you highlighting that you look for a sense of friction. You don't expect everything to be comfortable and easy and straightforward. But at the same time, if it goes too far or it's too corrosive, then there's a point where you have to take stock and say, this is no longer working for me. And you touch upon something really important, which is that you have the freedom of choice. You are at liberty to, so long as you get the right of entry, but you can go anywhere in the world if you're granted access into that country. And so equally you have the right to leave. And so, you had your own country, Turkey, you left, you went to Amsterdam, you returned to Turkey, you left, you went to Berlin, you left, and you are now well, you're in Turkey, but you live in Amsterdam. And you really highlight like you said, the privilege that you have to be able to make those choices if something's not working for you, that you can go somewhere else. What would you say to someone who, because I think at the moment, you talked about the grass is greener. I think there's a lot of the grass is greener at the moment. People are saying, oh, I want to move here. I want to try somewhere else. Somewhere's got to be better than here. Wherever they're living, someone's always looking outwardly. And what would you say is one of your lessons that you've learned from this experience of choosing to leave a country, move to another country, choosing to go home again, choosing to move again? What would you say you've detected from that experience in light of the grass is greener?
It is like, first of all, you go to a country as a tourist. That is almost never the reality of that place. And then there's always something new to experience when you move from one place to the other. It's just like a frog. If it is a river or a pond, probably at the pond, the frog will be thicker, waiting for the mosquito to come, open it and get it. That's the pond. And in a river, that frog has to swim. So it will develop the muscles. It will develop the muscles. But then it's also good for the frog to be at the pond and to be at the river. The point is, when at the river, you notice that there are predators.
Predators,
There's
yeah.
not predators. There's not enough flies to catch. There's not enough food. You're becoming slimmer and slimmer. You just have to say, wait a minute, where is my limit? So how thin can I be? And how fearful can I be? So you better perhaps give yourself a time. Or you just can say, in a year, if I didn't have this and this and this in order, something is not working. And if you had like so many people right now from the States want to move to Europe because of the elections.
Exactly.
Yeah, they will move to England. One of the worst places to be in Europe right now. But they don't see that like that because they are connected with the past image of England. It was England before Brexit. It's a horror story right now. So you should be really rich to go there, establish. But like, if you want to move, and if you see the prices, and if you see what is going on there, and if you see that young people don't have jobs, it's just, or if they have jobs, it's so little. Like there's a big crisis, economic crisis right now. There, living crisis. It's a living crisis. It's not an economic crisis. So it's just basically give yourself at least like 1 year of trial error. But after that, you just have to reevaluate what's going on. I learned also in life to go with the stream. I love friction, but I like going with the stream right now because the point is that that stream is the society. It's going. It's the land. It's the country. Your challenge of friction can be something else. In my case, I have said, I'm going to go with the stream. My challenge is my work. I'm going to level it up. And there I find the challenge and the friction and myself against myself. Like what I want to do and what I am clashing. It's that internal thing is something that I can manage much more and much more self journey than me coping up with racism, coping up with this, with that, like coping up with bureaucracy. Why should I do that? I just don't do that. I just deal with my issue. So, you know, that was one of the biggest lessons. Like, you need that base to develop as a human being. And if that base is not giving you what you want, you just have to flee.
It's interesting because when you're talking about countries, you're talking about you've referred several times to religions, to politics, to all the things that we don't see or need to see when we're a tourist. And then when you move to a country, you still don't need to get overly involved, but you made a very important observation earlier about respecting the rules, those that are visible and those that are invisible. So I want to return to that point because I think when we move to a country and the rose-tinted glasses fall off, and you're then dealing with whatever is going on in that country or that city that you're living in, because you also made the important observation that a city is not the country and a country is not the city, so you've got to bear that in mind. But when those rose-tinted glasses fall off and you are dealing with different, as I say, you don't have to overly embrace yourself, but you have to be mindful of them. So say more about the invisible and visible rules that you've learned to respect.
Yeah. Or like, I bitterly had to experience what's going on. Like, in Germany, there's recycling, but
Which they've
the
done for
glass, you
many,
said
many
glass.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. Glasses are this, like, there's white glass, green glass, brown glass. And, you have to put into big containers white glass, brown glass, green glass. So you have to find them to begin with. You're American. Yeah, like, you had this party on Saturday evening, and you have these wine glasses which are like white, like a tequila, you have wine, it's brown glass, green glass, white glass. So you want to throw away, and it's Sunday, you go there, big containers, you throw this white glass, green glass, brown glass. You're doing all good, right? You're just like integrated. The point is that you cannot throw anything to those boxes on a Sunday. So what you will get is that people shouting at you, or somebody is coming, like, doing this finger pointing at you, or basically shouting at you. You cannot do that. So integration for me is learning, really, this is the rule if I want to do the recycling, because you don't have to. If you don't do recycling, however, you're going to be despised. Like, that is the invisible one. Like, I just threw my glass into a normal rubbish bin. Wow, how come? And then the visible one is that you cannot throw it on a Sunday. The invisible pressure on you is that, like, no matter who you are, you're going to be like pointed out and shouted at. Doesn't matter where you come from, you're going to learn it from us. We're going to teach you a lesson. So I integrate to the idea that I cannot throw this on a Sunday. I don't integrate to the idea that you have a right to shout at me, because I'm going to shout back at you. This I learned a respect in the Netherlands. Or I can ignore you. That's also Dutch. Whatever. Whatever. So there are the rules. There are the invisible behaviors which you would come across. And there is this pressure you have from your social environment. I can be okay with the rules. I cannot be okay with this behavior.
Fundamentally, we need to adapt to the environment we're in so that, you know, we are comfortable and enjoying it. And I love the reference to invisible rules. Invisible rules. I think that's really interesting. So you've shared some really interesting points that I think are that, you know, give room for thought for people to consider. So I really appreciate you. Thank you very much for your open kind of really looking at your experience and looking at what there is to evaluate, to discover the lesson and to share it here. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. And it was a very nice conversation. You really listened a lot. And but that gave me I'm so thankful that I can share my experience. It's just an experience. It's not the truth about anything. But like something has to be said. Like it has been like my 7 years of journey, 48 years of journey, but like the last 7 years. It's so good that somebody really asks because you really have to put it out. It's not lived for nothing. It's all experience shared.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much.